and welcome to our fifth edition of the REIMAGINE 2020 virtual conference series, brought to you by MouseBelt Blockchain Accelerator and Multi.io. I'm your co-host, Ashlie Meredith, and today we're bringing you our end of year special, Happy Hodl Days. And we're delighted to have Rena Shah with us, Head of Business Development at Binance US. Hello, Rena, how are you doing today?
Hey, Ashley, so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for joining us. And for anyone who is just turning in, we had the pleasure of interviewing multiple Binance employees over the last 6 months, especially your colleague, Binance US CEO, Catherine Colley. So be sure to head on over to our REIMAGINE 2020 YouTube channel, smash that subscribe button, and check out all of our other great interviews. But back to Rena. As you know, I work with students through MouseBelt University. So we have a university program that engages the students from universities in 24 different countries, trying to connect them to the education and resources that they need to really succeed in the blockchain space. And a lot of them are considering careers in blockchain, and you have such an interesting background. So I was wondering if you could speak to, how you got into blockchain and maybe give any advice for any students tuning in.
Totally. I got into blockchain and crypto from the energy industry. Prior to working in crypto, I was a petroleum engineer with an oil company. And basically, what kind of drew my attention towards crypto was that people were using oil and gas to do crypto mining. And I was kind of seeing so much of the energy we were producing going towards that sector. And I was wondering what Bitcoin is, what was this thing they were mining for, because in my traditional sense I only thought of mining as mining for gold, drilling for oil, things like this, and this whole digital currency thing kind of captured my attention. And so I kind of took it to like the far extreme, to the sense that I immediately bought quite a few mining rigs and servers and set up my own mining pool. I would not recommend people to do that directly, because it takes a lot of capital, and it was maybe not my best decision. But, it was interesting in the sense that I finally got to learn, how do you set up a rig? How do I mine for a currency? But then how do you liquidate it? That was like the whole learning process for me. And that really captured my attention, that there's this alternative market that almost no one knew about 5-6 years ago.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's so interesting to me, because actually in our interviews with students, a lot of them got their start mining as well.
Yeah.
They heard about this Bitcoin thing and they set up their own rigs. So is that something that you would not recommend nowadays?
It's kind of hard. I think proof of work is kind of going to be obsolete. Everything's moving to proof of stake. If you're going to set up a rig, I would start it off on a smaller scale than going all in like I did, spending like 50, 60,000 on like servers and such. But if you're going to do on a smaller scale, totally try it out. I think it's kind of worthwhile to see, turning on your rig, configuring it how you wish, and then watching it go to work for you, and then seeing your output of what you're earning, because it's a whole different stream of capital that you never saw coming. But anything kind of larger than that, perhaps get some friends or family to help you out along the way, because it's just a lot of operational experience that you kind of have to learn to basically run your own business like on day one, which I was not prepared for.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is, you're kind of immediately setting up a business.
Yeah, I did it in a different way. So how I did mine is that I consciously only wanted to use renewable energy for mine, especially coming from the traditional power sector. I only wanted to use green energy towards mining, because I thought it was morally a little bit kind of weird to be using oil to mine for crypto, because oil should be used more for like human consumption, like basic power for people. So when I set mine up, I actually partnered with community solar farms, so that all of my rigs and servers would be housed on their solar farm off the grid, and I wasn't basically adding to the grid.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've heard people talk about like the best ways, if you have some sort of free or cheap or renewable energy source.
Yeah.
If you live with somewhere with water rights and you have like running water that is generating electricity or some other reason like that, it can be a really good investment.
Yeah, and if you're using green energy in America, you actually could get a tax incentive too. So something to think about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, to go back to your experience in the energy sector, what does being a petroleum engineer look like?
Totally. If you ever saw the movie Deepwater Horizon, where it's like Mark Wahlberg out on the rigs in the middle of the Gulf, basically was my life. So I was a drilling engineer, so I was essentially responsible for producing oil and gas for America, kind of all over from like West Texas to the middle of nowhere in California, even out to the Gulf and kind of international projects. So my entire day to day was how do we extract this resource in a sustainable way and how do we bring power to the world?
Absolutely. So what did you study in university to lead you to that first career?
Yeah, I actually studied petroleum engineering. So I grew up in Texas. My parents kind of were in the oil industry. My brother was a gas trader. And so it kind of was always in the line of what I always thought I would work in. To me, I always wanted to work in something in the global industry. And at that time, finance did not quite appeal to me. Joke's on me now because now I feel like I work in finance. But I wanted to be a part of something that touches the entire world. And to me, at that point, 10 years ago, energy was it.
Yeah, absolutely. And you made an interesting point that obviously fossil fuels, petroleum, these kind of non-sustainable forms of energy are necessary still in the world that we live
Yeah.
in, and especially developing countries. This is how people can feed themselves, warm themselves, and that we should be directing, if we're going to use those kinds of energy, we should be directing it towards things that are really needed, not something like mining crypto.
Yeah, I just feel like not all of the world has access to any sort of power. So I think that just as humanity should be our first priority. I think crypto is kind of beautiful in the sense that we're all for, unlocking yourself, achieving freedom and things like that. And with that, if we're going to do that in a mindful manner, we still want to make sure that on a basic human rights level, people have access to food, shelter, home, all of that. And so, with that, to me, power is pretty imperative that do they have access to electricity to run at least their cell phone at the very least, things like that. And then, if you're going to go into crypto from the mining perspective, can we be just a little bit more thoughtful? Obviously, the fossil fuels in the world is finite. We will run out at one point in the next 30 something 40 years, but we're also on a conscious shift to not use them if we can avoid it. So I'd like to stay on that path.
Absolutely. Well, I have kind of a two-part question then.
Yeah.
Was your interest in cryptocurrency kind of just you had discovered Bitcoin and knew that it was using these huge reserves of power and that made you kind of curious, so you went into it, or were you kind of looking for a change from the career that you had?
A little bit of both. So the power perspective really what made me want to kind of go all in. I actually heard about Bitcoin from a TV show. To be honest, it was The Good Wife. There was an episode in 2012 about the attorney basically defending the anonymous ability of Bitcoin, and like that was the first time I ever heard about it. And then I kind of like wrote it off. But then 2 years later, it came up in my actual career in oil. And so that's when I knew I wanted to go all in. For me, what other kind of sparked it was just market situations at that time. So I was laid off from the oil industry in 2016 when we dropped to like $22 a barrel. So I knew that it wasn't necessarily a sustainable industry, at least for me to be in. And I really liked the idea of like investing in something that was a different alternative asset class. I was not a finance major or investment banking or any of that in college. So this is like a different entry point for me to learn to manage a portfolio without essentially having to become a a broker or trader bro. It was like a whole different like mindset for me. And I thought it was accessible that people were nice about it. You didn't have to be in this elite club to learn about it. And that's what I really loved.
That's so true. And I feel that as well. And I guess, yeah, kind of leads me to my other question, which was um, you initially went into energy and oil and power because you saw how this touches everyone's lives and on a global scale. So it's interesting that you are working in cryptocurrency now, which is trying to bring, financial access to the world, or solutions like that. I'm just curious if you feel like you are doing the same kind of work that motivated you before, and if there's any blockchain or crypto use cases that you see for the energy sector, because I think there's a lot of interesting things out there about being able to buy and sell energy credits and back to the grid, and just how you've seen your work in crypto now and what you liked about the petroleum industry before.
Yeah, I think if anything, this particular industry is more rewarding than oil. I think quite frankly, oil gets a bad rep, just worldwide. But what I like about crypto is there is the ability to move things trustlessly if you don't need that intermediary. So you basically can get rid of monopolies, which I really like. And I could see that kind of tying into the energy industry, exactly what you're mentioning of trading energy credits. But if I have excess solar and you're not too far from me, why can't I just trade it directly with you? Why do I need to go through the grid and have them always be the central operator? Is there another means? I think it makes this kind of almost feel more communal and neighborly because then you know where things are coming from. That's where I would love to see the energy industry kind of pivot towards by using blockchain tech.
Absolutely. So now that students have gotten to hear, how you got into blockchain, do you have any advice for maybe somebody who is a petroleum engineer now and thinking about changing careers to blockchain, or maybe just anyone with a similar background to you? Any advice you have for what they should be paying attention to, or what they should be thinking about if they're thinking about a career in blockchain?
I think the most important aspect of if this is a career you want to pursue is just to do your own critical thinking and make it known publicly, even if you're just tweeting about your thoughts. That actually gets a lot of our attention in industry. We are looking at these hashtags where you're kind of putting your very thoughtful threads for what you're doing. And if they're really thoughtful, you will get DMs from us. We will be asking, are you looking for a new role? Things like that. It's not really a formal process, which is what I like about this, that anybody can kind of come and play and work with us. I think it's pretty open to whatever unique background. I can't imagine the sense that some other industry would take a petroleum engineer, quite frankly. So I think this is one thing I like. Um, the other thing is start kind of at least try buying your first piece of crypto before you try to work in the industry. Just kind of understand the life cycle of what it's like. And really, what I always want to hear from students or things are what's bringing them to crypto? Why do they want to be in it? But also, where do they think they can improve? I think a lot of us kind of have tunnel vision for working in the industry that we only see a few things, but we're not looking at it from other perspectives. And I like to see what students want to say about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a good point about how much opportunity there is in this industry, no matter what your background is. I never saw myself working in finance either, coming from humanities. I'm a philosopher. And yeah, so I guess what I would say if someone asked me that question, what attracts me to blockchain is I have a social and political philosophy. So
Absolutely.
thinking about economics and the social contract and how we the whole concept of DAOs is just like super interesting. How can like we create, how can we code rules that kind of take away human error when we're trying to govern ourselves,
Yeah.
right? So that's super exciting for students out there. Binance is looking for people like you, or Binance US is looking for people like you. So get out there, put your thoughts out into the world, let people know you're looking, and get your hands dirty, right? Download Binance
Please
US and
do.
start trading.
Oh, I appreciate that. I mean, for me, if anyone even gives us a chance, I am so thankful for them any day, any student. And if you're a student out there having trouble, please like email us, DM us. We are here for you.
Well, to talk briefly on that, then we've spoken before with our efforts to engage students in blockchain and what Binance US might be thinking about as far as engaging students, student developers. I know that you have run a trading competition with Morgan State FinTech Center. They are one of our contacts, and we've done a couple interviews with the students over there. So again, anyone just tuning in, if you want to learn more about what Morgan State is doing, check out our YouTube channel, Reimagine 2020. But maybe you could tell our viewers how that went and what you're thinking about for the future as far as engaging students.
Totally. I think honestly, this trading competition we ran with Morgan State and HBCU was probably the highlight of my year. It's really remarkable. We essentially did a closed loop trading competition where we provided the students a small amount of capital to trade on the platform and basically be their best asset management portfolio, essentially operate themselves as a full-fledged trader, have the full capabilities and function of our platform. But the added bonus is that we had a private Telegram group with these students, and they were able to bug our entire team with questions, mentoring, and the things they opened up my eyes to was just beyond what my wildest dreams could imagine. You have these students that are basically coming from all different backgrounds, either 18 and going to college like right out of high school. You have older students who have worked in industry and then come back to go back to college to get a different degree. And it's like the experience along from what we learned from them and how they applied trading completely different than how someone like me would apply like trading to my own thesis. So I really like that. Essentially, we had about 40 something students, give or take, on board with us, go through our full KYC, and they traded for about 6 weeks. And every week we kind of had a leaderboard of how they were doing. And I was blown away with the ability of their trading skills to the point that I feel like if one of them wants to manage my own portfolio, I probably would hand it over. It was just really remarkable how they took to trends and news, but also applied to other industries. There was one particular student who said, I'm going to run my portfolio just like I was running an FX portfolio. And I'm like, how do you already know foreign currency markets? Gold star to you.
Yeah, well, that's so fun. That's really great to hear that they were able to like engage directly with your team on Telegram, and I'm sure that really was a great experience for some of them to really open their eyes to like how welcoming and fun the crypto space can be. And I hope this will inspire other, exchanges to do similar things, or that you will be able to do this with other campuses, because I talk to students all the time, and I've mentioned, possibilities for that, just that things that I know that Binance US is doing, and they all think it's a great idea. So hopefully we can get some more trading competitions going.
Totally. We would love to increase our university engagement going forward, whether it's another closed loop trading competition, things that I'm also thinking about, perhaps a hackathon. So something like that. So if you don't want to trade, but maybe you're the marketer from your school, maybe then you get somebody who's on the kind of business side and put them together with some engineers to build a product. Would love to kind of do something like that because I'm curious to see what other products people would like to see from their crypto exchanges, because it's like, one, yes, we are a marketplace where you can buy assets, but then we kind of view ourselves more as like a fintech company trying to build other products. And I want to know what people want to build or want us to build.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I know that you had a big year with Binance US, mostly just getting launched, and, was following on Twitter or wherever else as slowly all the different states were getting checked box. So I know that it was a busy year just kind of getting settled and launched. So looking forward to see what you have planned for next year, and how you start to engage different communities and really hit the ground running with Binance US in the next year. So speaking to that, would like to hear from you. What was the highlights of the last year for Binance US and especially for you working there?
For me, I think the first and foremost highlight for me is actually joining the Binance US team this year. So I'm about 7 months in. I joined during basically the beginning of COVID, and just watching the team grow to be a solely remote team. I have yet to meet any of my coworkers in person. I have yet to even attempt to hug them. So like
Oh,
that kind of like
wow.
the community spirit of like getting to know my coworkers through screen, mind blowing. It's been such a rewarding experience. In terms of Binance US as a whole, in my 7 months, what have we hit? We are now operating in 42 states. We have 8 more to go, and then we have covered all of America. So I'm extremely proud of that. Other things, we have 50 assets now listed on the exchange, so over 100 trading pairs. Probably one of the most diverse sets across America. Extremely proud of that. Let's see, I think last week we had our all-time high. I think today Bitcoin is at its all-time high for the day, for the year. And so like all of these things just accounting to so much growth for Binance US. We released our web app or our mobile app at the beginning of the year. Now we're getting basically ready to release version 2 in the next couple of weeks, which is very clean UI and more user focused, because we've been kind of crowdsourcing what features users want us to change on the mobile app, and we're building exactly for what our users want. So very proud about that as well.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure the question gets asked all the time, and I know that the answer is that you are doing everything necessary to the highest of standards to make sure that you dot all the T's and cross the I's. But what's the roadmap for maybe a big 50 celebration of Binance US takeover?
I'm and like crossing my fingers that 2021 we will hit all 50 states. I think the ones that we're still missing are kind of the heavy hitter states that just have a lot of regulation, and we want to make sure that we've done everything in a compliant and regulated manner. I think after getting all 50 states, other things we'd like to do is kind of develop different types of products. So if we have all 50 MTLs, can we now get a lending license to create a yield product, something like that? Maybe in the future, can we build a futures exchange? I don't even know the regulation that we need to seek for that, but I'm sure there is a lot, but these are things that I want to build. So many items that we want to be able to do for next year, but right now, just from now until at least the end of this year, I just want to make sure users can get through the door. I want to make sure they're having a good trading experience, either API, web, mobile, whatever you're choosing. I also want to make sure that we have the assets that you want on the exchange. Have we looked at things that users are looking for, where the demand is? I just want to make sure that we are constantly speaking to all of our customers, whether you're retail or institution, and making sure we're taking all of your feedback, because it's the most valuable thing you can give us.
Yeah, that's so exciting. Well, it's awesome to hear all the progress that you all have made the last year, and what you're hoping for the future. Binance US yield and futures, like all things I think people are excited about and would love to see from your team. But also this year had a lot of hardship, struggles. Just as a year in review, have to check in and just hear more about how you think Binance US dealt with COVID-19. It sounds like you were still able. It's amazing that I've talked to many people who have started jobs this year who have never met their coworkers. And so it's kind of a totally new world, but would just love to hear and tell our viewers more about how you think Binance handled it, and what surprised you, what kind of challenges were you able to overcome?
I think we handled it pretty well. I think any kind of crypto forward company was kind of built for COVID per se, because we were already operating somewhat distributed as is. I think what was remarkable was the growth that we had during COVID, not only in terms of new users and trading, but employee growth. I think When I started in May, there might have been 20 of us, give or take. I believe now we're close to 40. So nearly doubled in 6 months for employees, so that we can continue to build other things that have kind of been going on during COVID. How do you hang out virtually? How do you hang out? How do you get to know your coworkers? I'm like very thankful for doing like virtual escape rooms and Pictionary days with our coworkers through whiteboards. Like, did not know that existed before.
Oh, virtual escape rooms. I haven't heard of that yet.
They're pretty fun. We did one as a team, kind of split up, and it was like in true competition style. Like each group wanted to outdo the other and make sure their timing was better. I believe we were trying to hijack a painting from a museum in our virtual escape room. I'm proud to say that our team came number one, so pretty proud on that. Things like that. Pictionary has become the default crowd favorite because I didn't know how many people on our team had such great or terrible artistic skills. I'm on the terrible side. Drawing with the cursor on your laptop, very hard.
Yeah, definitely.
I think like the other thing that's kind of fun is like kind of surprising and delighting people because it's not like we're in the same office where you can be like, you did something awesome, so I'm just gonna like pick up coffee for you like on my way in. So like doing the virtual shout outs and like screaming from the top of your lungs at how awesome people are and making birthday videos for them. And I've also been known to be sending cocktails to people's houses for you've had an awesome week. My gift to you.
Oh, that's so sweet. I love that. Yeah, I felt very fortunate that we were kind of a remote first company and that so much of crypto has been, we were kind of remote from our inception. We have team members in Bangkok, the US,
I love it.
all over the US. So it wasn't so much of a transition to work from home. But yeah, taking that extra time to get to know your coworkers, shout them out when they did something great, super important, especially in this time. So any other big updates from Binance US to share with viewers? I do want to kind of ask more about your personal opinions, but I want to make sure that we covered everything. What is your plans? What is Binance plans for 2021?
Yeah, I think in terms of what Binance US is just trying to achieve, a couple things. We want to one make sure our liquidity is top notch in the US, so all orders are getting filled and people have confidence in trading with us. So that's something that I'm personally working on. Other things that I'm kind of like seeing for what Binance US will be doing. We're actually scaling. We are actively hiring and we want you to join our team. I think the job board is updated on our website and there's a couple positions that I'm hoping that my new coworker will be my new bestie. That would be great. Things like that. And then on the personal note, what I'd like to see, I'd actually like to see more stablecoin activity next year. I think it's kind of the first foray for companies trying to understand what crypto is. So like virtual dollar, digital dollar, virtual dollar to US dollar. I'd love to see more activity in that next year. Positive things I'm seeing, more and more companies at least having the conversation of where crypto lies in their portfolio. I think 2020 was the record year to a lot of companies putting 5%, 10% of their assets in Bitcoin or ETH, and it's kind of a big deal. And I wonder if this will kind of be leading into next year. Will it continue to be like this? People still have this kind of bullish crypto is a good investment vehicle for them? Is it at least worthwhile to think about in their thesis? Or are we going to move back towards blockchain technology is awesome? How could we use it to basically revamp other industries?
Yeah, so I definitely, wanted to get your thoughts on some of the things that happened in the past year, the trends that you're seeing, what you think some of the trends will be for blockchain in 2021. It sounds like you would like to see growth in the stable coin area. are you predicting that there will be, or you think that's
I
somewhere that
think
we should focus?
I think there will be growth. I think earlier, maybe within the last 10 days, we saw news that Circle's USDC will now be used for Venezuela as part of their kind of digital dollar evaluation. So that's extraordinary because Venezuela has high inflation, their currency has been unstable. So to consider using a digital dollar as now part of their national currency is huge. What if we did that in America, used the stable coin as part of our national currency? Would that have helped when we were doing stimulus checks that earlier this year? People would have received them instantly as opposed to having a backlog. I think that's I think it's a really big focus that stablecoins show that there is growth and scalability, but there's efficiency in it as opposed to other means.
Yeah, so the comment about stimulus checks just got me thinking about, as someone on the exchange side who's watching these markets move, I've had other interviewers on kind of who write for Forbes and are following markets, maybe speculating that a lot of the rise in Bitcoin's price is institutional money. But I think there was a lot of prediction that kind of the thing that would trigger adoption would be more distrust in our financial institutions. And we saw the economy tank early this year. Just thought, any of your thoughts behind that? What do you think is some of the biggest barriers to adoption? Where do you think all this growth is coming from? Is it institutional? Do you think the everyday person is becoming more and more interested in blockchain?
I think it's both. Definitely lots of institutional growth this year. I mean, when you had Michael Saylor put what 500 million in Bitcoin in a year or something like that, extraordinary. So institutional growth is there, but retailers are also thinking, is this something that I should be thinking about? I think when the stimulus checks came out, there was kind of unprecedented growth in Bitcoin volume over those next few days, specifically for $1,200 buys, so the exact amount of stimulus checks. Wow. People are thinking, let me start putting this money into something else that might grow because my family really needs it. So I think there's both sides of the equation. I think retail is growing, institutions growing, and that's how it should grow. You want the market to grow healthy on both sides, where you have active buyers and sellers on both places, because then you have confidence to trade with each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Rena, for joining us. It's the holidays. We just celebrated Thanksgiving. Lots to be grateful for, even though it's been a hard year. But wanted to hear from you. What's something that brought you joy this year in crypto, in your personal life?
Things that brought me joy this year. One, joining Binance US. It's a dream to be working for this type of organization where everybody's opinion matters, and leadership at Binance US is great. I have a lot of respect for Catherine Coley and how she runs the business and the organization. Other things that brought me joy this year, the resurgence of Dogecoin really brought me joy this year. All of you TikTokers who did Doge this year, I love you.
Yeah, it seems like a really great organization, and we've had the chance to talk to you a few times and had Catherine Coley on the show or in the conference, and you are hiring, so plug that again for anyone watching to go check out your jobs board and maybe bring some joy into their year by joining the team. And then what's something that you're hoping for the next year?
More adoption. I hope more people are building rails to see where crypto can fit in. I hope more platforms accept crypto payments. I hope people learn how to use crypto, not only just for trading, but whether it's to generate a yield from some of the lending products out there in the market, or the credit card or debit card functions kind of coming out in crypto. Very excited about that. I just want to see people at least give it an honest conversation. Could this work for me? Or is this at least worth thinking about? That's really what I'm hoping for next year.
Yeah, absolutely. And me too. Yeah, so thank you so much, Rena, for joining. For anyone just tuning in, this is Reimagine 2020 virtual conference series. We're wishing everyone a happy HODL days. And we've been talking with Rena Shaw, head of business development at Binance US. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Ashley. This has been a blast.